You are listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. This is Season 2, Episode 8, Mariette. I'm your host, Haley Radke. Today I get to welcome Mariette Williams to the show. Mariette tells us about her experiences as a Haitian adoptee growing up in Vancouver, Canada, and finding out that her adoption was non-consensual. We touch on some things that transracial adoptees may struggle with, and Mariette gives us her perspective on adoption reform. We wrap up with some recommended resources, and as always, links to all of the things we'll be talking about today are on the website adopteeson.com. Let's listen in. I'm so pleased to welcome Mariette Williams to Adoptees On. Thanks for agreeing to share your story with us, Mariette.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, would you mind just starting out with that? Just tell us a little bit about your adoption journey.
I was adopted at the age of 3, and I grew up in Vancouver, Canada. My parents actually adopted 4 other children besides myself. There was actually 5 of us who grew up together in Vancouver. I moved to Florida for college, and then at the age of 32, I decided to start looking for my mom, and I went back to Haiti in 2014, and I actually found my birth mother. So it's been a crazy, crazy journey, and I was happy to be able to get closure through that trip. But the path to get there was really crazy.
Okay, so how do you search in Haiti when you are in Florida at that time?
I was in Florida, and I knew the name of the town that I was born in, and so it was honestly just so random. I was on Facebook, and I just searched the name of the town, and they have a Facebook group for whatever reason. So I reached out to the moderator of the Facebook group, and I told him my story, and I said, I'm looking for my family. This is my name. This is when I was born. This is my information. And within a week, he was able to get back to me, and he said, I know someone who knows your family. They've been looking for you. And then things went very quickly after that. And within a couple weeks, I was talking on the phone with my mom.
Wow. So what was that like? What was your first conversation like?
Well, we had to speak through a translator because she speaks Creole and I don't. So I had someone on the phone with me, and I was asking her questions, and she was just saying, I just couldn't believe it. She was asking me some questions, asking if I was married, asking about my children. So it was honestly just very surreal. First of all, she didn't know where I was. My adoption wasn't consensual. So the person who had arranged my adoption, my mother, really had no idea that I was being adopted out. So she didn't know if I was in Miami, if I was taken to Dominican Republic. She had no idea that I was in Canada being raised by another family. So one of the first things was she just wanted to know where I was, if I was okay.
She didn't know you were adopted?
No, she did not know. And it actually happens quite a lot in Haiti. She had not signed any papers. She didn't know that I was adopted out. So this entire time, my family has been wondering where I was. They did not know that I was adopted.
So how did that happen? You were just 3, you said?
Yeah, I was 3. So basically what happened is that my mom trusted a woman who would kind of go around and promise families that she would take care of their children. And so at the time, my parents had several children. So the youngest 3, we were girls. And so she said, like my mom had known this lady. She actually was like my godmother. She ran an orphanage, and she basically promised my mom, like, I will get them a sponsor. I'll be able to send them to school. You can send them to live with me. But adoption was never the plan. It was that we were going to live with this woman in order for her to get us into school. But the entire time, the woman was basically arranging adoptions for the children who are living in this orphanage. So, like my mom, she told me when I went to Haiti to meet her that she would go to the orphanage. I was still breastfeeding at the age of 3. She would breastfeed me. She would bring us fruit, and she would visit us. And then the last time that she had come back to visit us, this woman was gone, and I was gone as well. So she took my sisters back home with her, and I had been missing this entire time. So, like, my parents went on to have another child after me. I'm not the youngest of the family. I have one sister who's younger than me, who I met when I went back to Haiti. Adoption was never their plan.
Oh, I'm so sorry. How did that, like, how did you feel when you learned that? That's shocking.
It is. It's funny because I'm actually in the middle of writing a memoir. I'm writing this all down because I get the same reaction whenever I tell people my story. They're just like, that is crazy. It's amazing that you were able to find your mom. It's amazing that you were able to find your family. I have processed it, but at the time I was in disbelief. I was angry. There's a lot of emotions, but it's been a while now. It's been 2 years, so I've been able to kind of work through it. But yeah, I think when you have been told something your entire life, and then all of a sudden you find out that the one thing that you knew about yourself, because as adoptees you grow up not knowing much about yourself. So the one thing I knew about myself was really that, my family was poor, which they are. I knew my whole life growing up that my mom had like given me up for a better life. And then all of a sudden you find out that's not true, that was never her plan. She never had wanted to relinquish me. It really shakes you because it's the only thing you really know about yourself. And then you find that thing is untrue. So it was difficult. It was.
And your adoptive parents obviously didn't know this. How did they take the news that this unethical adoption practice this is what happened?
So much time had passed that I think my mom said that she knew something was a little bit fishy because when she had gone down to Haiti, she was only supposed to be there for like a week. She was supposed to go down, she was supposed to get my visa, and we were supposed to leave. And so she had actually ended up staying for a month because she just said everything was a mess. She was just like, the paperwork wasn't ready. She could just tell that things were just not what they were supposed to be. But she, in the back of her mind, was like, I just wanted to get you out of there. She's like, I knew things weren't on the up and up, but like instead of like, and she doesn't speak Creole, so she also was kind of in the dark with everything. So her mind was just like, get her out of there, and then we'll figure things out later. But yeah, she said when she was there, she knew that something was wrong.
And she's maybe thinking this is like Haiti's got some messed up practices here, but not thinking that you've been like taken. Oh my goodness. Right. Okay. Wow. Okay, so you said you went to Haiti to meet your family. How much after your first phone call was that?
Okay, so I went back to Haiti I think I went back in 2015. Yes, I went back to Haiti in 2015. I found my family in 2014. An entire year passed between me actually going down there just because of logistics. My passport had expired and I had to renew my passport. So I didn't actually go down for a year, but within that year, I was talking back and forth with my family. My brothers and my sisters, we mostly talk on WhatsApp. And it's funny because I took French in high school. Growing up in Canada, I took French. Haitians speak French and Creole. So, like, we have a language in common that we can both speak. So it's funny, we communicate mostly in French because I can understand French and kind of speak it, and they can kind of speak it as well. So it's kind of like the common languages that we can communicate in.
Oh, that's so neat. But your biological mother doesn't speak French, right? She speaks Creole?
Most Haitians understand a little bit of French, but she mostly speaks Creole.
Okay. So you go to Haiti, and then how you have a translator with you? How does that trip go?
Yes. There was a story that the Associated Press had produced. It was about adoptions in Haiti. And so everyone sent me this article. They're like, oh, you have to read this, you have to read this. And I was like, wow, it's interesting because they were basically saying that adoptions are being, I guess they're changing the way adoptions are done in Haiti. They're lengthening the time, like parents have a certain amount of time to change their minds after they've signed papers. Like there's certain regulations that are in place that weren't in place in the 80s. And so I actually reached out to the reporters and I was like, I read the story. I was like, I actually found my family and I'm going back to Haiti sometime. I would love for you to cover the story because it's kind of, it relates to what you were talking about. So I actually went back and forth with this reporter for a few weeks and he was able to get the trip approved. So I actually went back to Haiti with the Associated Press and that's how they covered my story.
And how was the trip? Like, this is obviously an emotional trip back to your country of origin. And then you also have someone watching. It sounds really emotional.
this was my third time back to Haiti. So I had been back before,
Okay.
but it was funny that, I mean, I was by myself. Like when I went on this trip to meet my family, my husband stayed home with my children. It didn't work out for him to be able to come. So I was really by myself on this trip, which was almost, I think it was a good thing because I was able to, I know it sounds crazy, but I was able to just kind of go through things myself. And like, I didn't have someone, I guess, like watching for like a certain reaction or being like, are you okay? Are you okay? The reporter really was respectful of space. I was staying at a guest house, and so when I was by myself, I was able to just kind of be by myself, which is what I think I needed.
Mm-hmm. Are there any special moments from the trip that you remember?
I had a translator with us, and I was able to like ask my mom about my birthday because my birthday has always been like a guesstimate. Like I've never really known, and so she confirmed my birthday, which was April 20th. She confirmed the what day I was born. She said I was born on a Monday. So I think for an adoptee, never knowing those details and like actually sitting in front of your mother and her telling that to you, I think to me that was one of the most special things.
And how many siblings do you have? Bio siblings?
In Haiti, I have seven siblings. I have one who is younger, and then I also have older ones. So it's a very big family.
Wow, did you get to meet all of them at once?
I did not. I met two of my sisters and two of my brothers, and then my other family members are kind of scattered.
I have seen the article that was written about your reunion, and I saw that you had also written another response to that. And the media can really blow things out of proportion and, be slanted. And anyway, can you comment a little bit about what that was like to have the media cover your story and just your thoughts on that and how it affected your trip? Well, you said he was kind of standing back, but when you came back and saw what the story was that he had written, your feelings on that.
I was a little surprised at the story. Like, first of all, I was grateful that he did accompany me to Haiti. I don't think I would have been able to do the trip completely by myself. So I was grateful that he was there. I have some really cool moments that he captured on camera, so that was really cool as well. I wouldn't have been able to do that if I was by myself. So I was grateful that he was there, but I feel like there might have been a story that he wanted to capture. Maybe his editors wanted him to capture before he even left. And so it was kind of like he had the story in mind of what he wanted to tell. Then he just kind of filled in the blanks, which and some parts of the story just weren't accurate at all. So that really disappointed me. And then when the story actually went out, it was funny because he was like, don't read the comments on Yahoo. He was like, people, for whatever reason, Yahoo commenters are just nasty. And I was like, oh, whatever. So like when the story, I woke up, it was actually like the day after Thanksgiving, when the story first came out, and like some people were like tweeting me. And so one of the first links that they tweeted was to the Yahoo site. So I clicked on it, read the whole article. I was like, oh, wow. And then I read the comments. So the comments were really, really brutal, like he said, but they called me all kinds of names, just ungrateful. They're all types of things they were saying about me. So that took a little while to get over. I had lots of people on Facebook, people I hadn't talked to in years, emailing me like, oh, I saw the story. It was in our local paper, the Sun Sentinel down here. It was in the Atlantic. It was everywhere. All of a sudden I was just like bombarded. And so I was like, I just turned my phone off and I was like, I can't do this right now. So, but like I said, I'm grateful that my story was told. I wish that there was a few things that would have been done differently with the story, but it's like, you know what? I definitely learned my lesson. It definitely toughened me up. I have really thick skin now for like anything that's done online or said online. It's like, a lot of these people wouldn't say these things to your face, but I think people just feel emboldened when they're behind a keyboard.
Oh, definitely. Do you have any advice for other adoptees who've gone through that, like public reunion in some fashion?
It really helps to have a good network around you. Like when the story came out, I called my mom and I was like, okay, Mom, I was like, the story's out. I was like, there's some things in there that I just think were not accurate. And she was just like, don't worry about it. So she was like, she's like, you know the story. She's like, I know the story. And she's like, that's all that matters. She was like, just don't worry about it. And obviously, my husband, I have a really close group of friends who are just like, you know what happened. Just block it out. So I think that if an adoptee is going to share their reunion so publicly, that they have to have a really good network around them. If there's any type of backlash, any type of whatever, to kind of keep them grounded and just be like, this is real. Like what everyone's saying out there on the internet isn't, it's not real. So I think that really helped.
Mm-hmm. That's great. I want to shift and talk to you a little bit about adoption reform. You said your adoption took like a month and your mom was a little bit leery of what was happening. What are your thoughts on that? And especially international adoption. We hear so much about child trafficking, and it's a big problem. It's a big business, and I'd love to hear what you think about that.
Adoptions are, decreasing. International adoptions are going down from adoptions from other countries to the U.S., which I think a lot of people don't think it's a good thing, but I do. I think that the first thing that needs to happen is that if there is adoption, it needs to be intercultural or within the country. I think that's the number one thing that needs to happen. I think we need to support mothers. I hear of these astronomical fees that people are paying to adopt, upwards of, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. They're waiting 2, 3, 4 years. And then I feel like that money could easily support a family to keep a family together. So for me, I think the number one thing I would like to see is keeping families together. I think that adoption, should be a last resort if the child is an orphan. But I would also like to see the child stay in their culture, in their country, rather than being displaced and go to another country. So that's something I would like to see.
Thank you. Yeah, that's really wise. Can you talk us through a little bit about that? What was it like for you to grow up in Vancouver?
I think I had a good childhood. I went to my siblings and I went to private school. There wasn't a lot of Black people in Vancouver, but I mean, for the most part, I had a good childhood. But I think one thing that led me to move to Florida and move to the United States is that I wanted to be around more people that look like me. So that's kind of what prompted me to move down to Florida.
Mm-hmm. And were your adopted siblings, were they also adopted from Haiti?
Yes, they are. All 5 of us are adopted from Haiti, but we're not biological.
Right. So you had them as one source of mirroring, but I mean, it's not the same as genetic mirroring, obviously.
Right.
Can you speak to, sometimes we talk about adoption trauma, and I'm a domestic adoptee. I'm Caucasian, and my parents were both Caucasian, my adoptive parents. Can you just talk a little bit about that extra layer of being transracially adopted, your relationship with your parents, that kind of dynamic?
Well, I think first of all, for transracial adoptees, there's some things that are easier and some things that are harder. I think that when you hear of adoptees whose parents don't divulge to them that they're adopted until they're adults, obviously there's no way you can do that when you're a transracial adoptee. So I think obviously the first thing is that we know that, we're different. We're from a different family. So I think that's easier. There can't be any type of deception in that particular area. But I do think it's harder for transracial adoptees just because, especially when it comes to racism, I think it's hard for white parents to prepare their children for racism. It's hard for them to prepare them for certain things in life. And I just think a lot of adoptive parents are like, they take the colorblind route. And I don't think that is helpful. I think that kids need to learn, about their culture, learn about their heritage. I think that's important, instead of just to kind of ignore it or kind of brush it to the side. Whatever your background is, I think you need to learn who you are, whether you're a transracial adoptee or not.
Mm-hmm. And you said you had traveled back to Haiti even before your reunion.
Yes. I've been back twice on missions trips, but never to find my family. I just never thought it was even possible. So I didn't even really look those 2 times I went back because I just didn't think it was possible.
And were you in the same part of the country you were from, like looking back, or were you in a totally different part?
No, I was like a few hours away, so like I wasn't even close to where I was from. But I mean, Haiti is a country that is built on networks. Everything, it's like everyone knows each other. There's word of mouth, and so I think had I looked, I would have been successful if I had done it earlier as well.
When you first returned to Haiti on a mission trip, what were your first thoughts about coming back to this country that you'd been gone from for a long time?
It was difficult. I went back when I was 18, right after I graduated high school, and I don't think I was emotionally prepared. I think that I hadn't really grappled with my adoption, and then it's like boom, I'm back. And so I think it was a really difficult trip for me emotionally. And also it was a mission trip, and I think that going on a mission trip is different from going to just visit the country. So I only saw one side of Haiti. I didn't see the beautiful side of Haiti because there's a very beautiful side, and actually that's one of the things that I'm doing this summer. I have a Facebook group for Haitian adoptees. There's about 130 of us, and I actually organized a trip for us to go back to Haiti this summer. There's going to be 18 of us that are going to go back, and it's going to be like a cultural trip. We're going to visit museums. We're going to go hiking. We're going to hang out at the beach. Like it's going to be, and a lot of these people who are going have never been to Haiti before because I want their first time to Haiti not necessarily to be like a poverty tour. I want it to be like, this is your country. It's very beautiful. It's not everything that you see on the news all the time.
Mariette, I love that. I want to make sure we link to your group in the show notes in case anyone else is a Haitian adoptee. Would that be all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so you have this Facebook group for other adoptees. Is there any other ways that you've connected with adoptees and felt supported?
I mean, just by writing my blog, it's funny because for a long time, I was like, oh, I just, I want to blog, I want to do something. So I'm like, I'm going to just find out, adoption stories, and it just kind of, snowballed from there. And so it was a 1-year project, actually. It was kind of like a New Year's resolution for 2014, where I'm just like, I'm going to just for a year, I'm just going to collect all these adoption stories. And so I started with my sister. I literally had no one else I really had planned to interview. I started with my sister, and she told her story. And then I joined Twitter and just kind of reached out to people on Twitter, and it kind of went from there. And sometimes I had no idea who I was going to interview, but it always worked out that I had a story. So for a year, I gathered all these stories, and then in between stories, I kind of shared a little bit about my story. And so one of the stories I shared was about searching for my family and just not being sure, my whole life if I should do it, what I should do. And so many people reached out to me, and they're like, oh my gosh, you have to look for a family. And they're like, if you need help, I know people in Haiti. I can do this, I can do that. They're like, you have to do it. And so through the blog, I was like, I have to do this. I got to do this. And so that really was the reason why I searched. I honestly think that if I would not have blogged, I would not have searched for my family because I just felt it was so impossible that I just didn't even want to get my hopes up. So, but it was just like all these people were cheering me on, and I was like, okay, yeah, I got this. I'm going to do this. And I found them, and it was absolutely insane.
That's amazing. The internet is so wild.
It is. Honestly, it is.
Okay, so you've connected with other adoptees through Twitter and your blog. Is there anything that you've done to find any healing from finding out that your adoption was not consensual, just all the emotions of search and reunion and all of those things? Have you done any healing? I know writing is a big part of that for you. Anything else? Therapy, reading?
I have not. I've done a lot of writing. I haven't done therapy. I know a lot of adoptees, and this is something we talk about in our Facebook group, are advocates of talk therapy. I haven't done that. I know that I'm leaving the door open for that if I feel like I need to do that. But I think just having really hard conversations with my adopted mom in Canada, and like when everything happened, we had some really good conversations. So I think that's helped. But I don't know, I just think that for a long time I was just kind of in the dark about so much. And then finally, when I was able to find things out, I was like, well, it's like, here's the truth. I can continue to be angry at whoever. I can be mad at all these people for doing this, or I can literally just not just brush it under the rug, but like learn to kind of like move on. And so I've done that. And like I was, a little bit, I was angry for a while after my reunion, but like I just think that it's like I was able to just look at the big picture. And I don't like to say that like, oh, everything happens for a reason, and like I was taking my family for this reason, because I think it minimizes the pain that my birth mother went through. Like I don't think it's fair to say that you lost your child, for this reason. I don't think that's fair to say that. But it's like here's where we are. This is what we're dealing with. So I can use my position to, help other people. And so, like I said, one of the important things to me was for other Haitian adoptees to have this place online to talk about things, to share with things, and to be able to go to Haiti together. So I don't want to say that the reason I was taken from my family is for this, but I will say that I'm happy to be in the position where I can be doing stuff like this.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, how about your siblings? Have they decided to search? Have they watched your journey and been curious?
We're all in different stages. One of my siblings she went back to Haiti and she was able to meet with her dad and the rest of her family. For some of us, it was not really important. For some of us, it was. For me, it always was. Some of my other siblings just they're like, I don't really have a desire to search, and it's just isn't really not that important to me, which is totally fine, because, like I said, everyone is at their own pace in their own journey. But I also think that for some people, like I always had a restless heart, and so I always just wanted to know and wanted to know. And so I think there was a reason for that. I think that is because of the way things happen. I think, and my mom told me, she was like, you've always wanted to know. She's like, you've always had this, thing of like wanting to know who your mom was. And she's just like, I think there was a reason. I think there was, she was kind of like, in a way, like calling you back to her, because like she was still there, and she, you needed to meet. So with the other adoptions, they might have a different situation in which their parents relinquish them, and they feel like they don't have, like, I guess you could say, unfinished business. Where I felt I've always had that, like, restlessness in my heart.
I love that picture that your birth mother is calling back to you. That's powerful. Has faith or spirituality impacted your adoption journey at all, Mariette?
I think it has. I know that, like, I do believe in God. I do believe that there were things in my life that had to happen at a certain time in order for them to happen the way that they did. Just the way that I went back to search, just the way that like I said, there were certain things that had to happen in my life. Like, for example, when I was adopted, I think my mom wanted to name me Crystal. When she started corresponding, she realized that I had a name, and she was like, okay, your name is Mariette, and I wasn't going to change that. Had my adopted mom changed my name, it would have been very, very difficult for me to find my birth mother, because the first thing I did when I reached out to this Facebook group from this place in Haiti was I told them my name. And so my mom had actually taken my Haitian last name and made it my middle name. So I knew my first and last name that my mom had given me when I was born. So had I not had that, had my name been completely changed, it would have been almost impossible for me to go back and try and find them. So I think things like that, having my name not changed, and having the blog and reaching out to the AP reporter and going back to, like, all these things had to happen at a certain time in the right way for everything to come together like that. So I do believe that there was some divine intervention, I guess you would say.
Thank you. Can I ask, what is your reunion status? Are you still in touch with your bio family from in Haiti?
I am. We are still in touch. When I go back this summer, I won't be in contact with them because we're going for a week with this group, and the entire week is packed with activities. But I'm hoping to go back maybe later on this year or next summer. But yeah, I am in contact with them. I was actually able to help my mom. It was funny. When I left Haiti, I saw her home, and so I wanted to help her, like, kind of rebuild her home, and put proper floors on, and redo the doors. And so I was able to do that. And then literally, like, not even a year later, the hurricane came through and completely decimated everything. And
Mm.
so I was able to help them again, basically rebuild their home from the ground up. So again, had I not been in contact with them, that wouldn't have been able to happen. I was happy to do that for them.
And you said that in your first year, you're in like constant contact with your siblings and on WhatsApp and stuff. How has the contact, is it maintained the same frequency? Are you less now? What's that look like?
It's less now. I think for me it was overwhelming at first because, like, my older brothers remembered me. They remembered, like, when I was really small, and like we used to play together, and I was like, I had no idea who they were. So they were really excited to see me. And so, like, for them, the contact was like constant. Like, all the time they wanted to text and talk on the phone. And it was like, when I came back to Florida and I had to, go to work and get back into my regular routine, it's like they still wanted to be in contact all the time. So I definitely had to learn to set boundaries, and I had to say, okay, I cannot text you in the middle of the day. Like, I just had to say, like, okay, like, I'm very happy that I found you, but it's like we can only talk maybe once a week or so it's like I had to set boundaries with them and say, like, I just cannot be always in communication. So
And there's only one of you.
right. And then it's like you feel guilty then. You're like, oh my gosh, like, I've been, I guess you could say, missing all this time, and now I'm back, and now I'm telling them that I don't want to talk to them. But it's like I had to set healthy emotional boundaries. And I think that it's hard for adoptees, because we've wanted this for so long. Then all of a sudden we're like backing off a little bit, but it's so necessary, or it's very overwhelming if not.
Mm-hmm. Are you comfortable talking a little bit about your relationship with your adoptive parents?
Sure, we could talk about that a little bit.
Okay. It sounds like that they were supportive of your search. Is that right?
Yes, they were.
When you went on your mission trips, was it just you? Were they with you, or?
My mom was with me for the mission trip when we first went. And I think that was kind of her way, because I had turned 18. And so it was her way of, like, we're going to go back before you leave for college and see Haiti together. That was kind of her way of kind of like bookending, I guess, our time together. When I turned 18, she took me back. So, yeah.
And you had mentioned before that you had some hard conversations with her after your reunion. And can you talk a little bit about that?
Again, my reunion happened at a time where I was a mom, and obviously she's my mom. And so I think that we had conversations as adults, not as like necessarily like mother-daughter. And so I think that when you become a parent, there are things that you understand that you wouldn't understand before. Like, I think I started to understand maybe some of her decisions as a mom, because I was a mom too. So I think that being, in my 30s when I searched, made it better for us to have those conversations.
Did you have a conversation with your adoptive parents about the adoption? Like, I don't know, I guess I'm picturing finding out that it was non-consensual and maybe they did have some red flags. Did you guys talk about that?
We did a little bit. And like I said, my mom knew that things weren't on the up and up, but she thought at that moment the best thing to do was to get me out. Again, she was in the dark. She didn't speak Creole. She didn't really know what was going on. She was trusting that, they were telling her that whatever she was supposed to be doing was the right thing. So yeah, she said that she made the best decision based on the information she had at the time.
Oh, obviously, like, she couldn't have known that you were taken. Like, Is there anything else that you want to touch on before we go on and talk about recommended resources? Anything else you want to share with the audience about adoption reform?
Because of things like this, and because of, social media, I think that people are being more transparent, which I think is great. I think back in the 80s and 90s, there was no such community like the community that we're building. So I think things are definitely headed in the right direction.
Definitely agree with that. So let's move to recommended resources. And the thing I would like to share today is a website called Intercountry Adoptee Voices. It has a gigantic list of blogs and books, and it is all they call Intercountry Adoptee Voices. It says it began in 1998 in Sydney, Australia by intercountry adoptees for intercountry adoptees of any country of origin. So it has, like I said, this great list of different blogs and books, and there's blog posts on the site itself. They have links to post-adoption support services, research, a whole bunch of different resources. And I haven't had a chance to look at everything because it's quite extensive, but it was kind of exciting to find a site for international adoptees because often it's domestic adoptees that are getting the voice out there. So I really love that resource. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably if you looked at that list of blogs, Mariette, you'd probably recognize a bunch of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what did you want to recommend?
I have a fellow adoptee, a transracial adoptee. Her name is Mariette Lockington. She has a great website, and she also just published a book of poetry from the point of view of a transracial adoptee, which is, I think, is amazing. And she actually had a BuzzFeed article that was published a while ago explaining how she grew up with her white parents and some of the racism that she felt growing up with them. And so in the comment section of that article, it was really two sides. It was one side where you get the typical, you should be grateful that, you know, your parents even adopted you. And then you had the other side of people who were a little more empathetic and they understood that, you know, it is hard having those conversations with your parents when they're of a different race. And then also, I don't know if we talked about this, but The Lost Daughters is a gathering of women adoptees, and we talk about everything on there from mothering to reunions to adoption reform. There's all kinds of things on there, so that's also a great website to check out.
Can we stop right there? You're a contributor there, right?
Yes, I am.
We have recommended that resource a number of times. It's so valuable. Can you talk a little bit about more about that, about why it started?
It really started to give adoptees a voice, and I just think that women in general were just, I don't know, this is the way we're made, I guess. We're just very conversational, I think we're more expressive than men sometimes. So I think it started out as just like a way to support each other, and it has branched out to really have all different types of voices on there, and really generations on there too. So it is really, really a diverse group of women.
Yeah, there's a huge back catalog of articles and different posts, and I love that some are essays, some are more like just like personal stories, and then there's some, I think I've seen poetry on there as well, or just different kind of different pieces. So I love that, a big range of kinds of pieces. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Okay, you have another resource to recommend.
Yes, the last resource I recommend is actually a book on Amazon, and it's called Black Anthology: Adult Adoptees Claim Their Space. And it's basically an anthology that I was so honored to be included in, filled with essays and poems, some song lyrics in there from Black adoptees. And when I read the first draft, I was just blown away, just because there's a lot of stories from older Black adoptees, a lot of adoptees who were a product of like soldiers. So there's like Korean, African American adoptees, and so it's like all these stories that I had no idea. And so I think it's great that we have, like I said, it's again kind of like the Lost Daughters, where you have these generations of adoptees speaking to each other and contributing to this conversation.
Mm-hmm, definitely. Where can we connect with you online?
I'm on Twitter at Mariette Writes. It's Mariette. rights. And then you can also check out my blog. My blog is, I don't post news stories, but I post some things that I'm doing offline. Like this summer, I'm going to be going to an adoption conference in Pittsburgh. It's the Korean American Adoptive Family Network conference in Pittsburgh this summer, and I'll be on 2 panels this summer talking about adoption and mothering and some things. So I'll be posting updates on my website of that. But all my stories that I blogged for a year are up there, so people can still read them if they want to.
And you have the article that was written about you posted there as well, so people could see that, and your piece responding to that as well. Well, thank you so much, Mariette. I loved hearing your story in your own words and almost in person.
I know, and thank you for inviting me on it. This has been great.
I've got links up on adopteeson.com for everything we talked about today. So if you want to find Mariette's blog or that Facebook group that she runs, head on over to adopteeson.com and you can find those links in the show notes. I have been tremendously honored in these last few weeks, especially by you, because there's so many of you signing up for my Patreon account. I'm so grateful. Thank you. I've had a few adoptive parents reach out to me as well who are listeners, and I just want to clarify that my secret Facebook group is strictly for adoptees. So I'm really thankful that you guys are listening to the show and listening to adoptees, but the Facebook group will be strictly for adoptees. This is kind of awkward, but if you do want to support my work financially, I do have a one-time donation button on my website. It's adopteeson.com. It's right on the homepage. So that's a way you could give back to the show if it's something that you feel called to do. And if you do want to support monthly, like through Patreon and get access to that secret Facebook group, the link for that is adopteeson.com/partner. I think there's over 30 of us now, and we just have conversations about the episodes, and people are kind of sharing what they're going through. Lots of interesting things. So come and join us. And as always, the best way you can thank me for making the show is to tell just one person about this episode. Maybe you know a Haitian adoptee, and maybe they would find Mariette's story valuable and want to join her Facebook group. So if you could tell just one person about this episode, I would be so grateful. Thank you for listening. Let's talk again next Friday.